Welcome to Ask Fear and Greed, where we take your questions and do our very, very best to answer them. I'm Michael Thompson, and good afternoon, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Sean, this question today came from Bryan via Facebook. And it actually came in response to a discussion that we had about how unfair interest rates are as a mechanism for tackling inflation, that it hits certain parts of the economy and society more than others. But Bryan asked, off the back of that, he said, instead of the Reserve Bank varying interest rates, why not scrap that and vary the GST accordingly? Yes, he says it would be tricky to navigate initially, but once implemented, would be smooth. Look at petrol prices. They go up and down all the time and no one riots. Doing this, everyone is affected, not just people with loans, including those boomers. What do you reckon?
Wow. In theory, I like the idea, though in practice, anyone wanting to get elected wouldn't go for it. But the idea behind the comment is that tax policy or fiscal policy should do more of the work. Now, monetary policy is blunt. It whacks everyone. Interest rates rise, everyone gets hit with it. And sometimes those that can least afford it, think of a first home buyer, they get hit much harder than, well, as Bryan said, the boomers, people who maybe own their own home. They may have wealth. They're not repaying loans. So monetary policy sometimes hits the people that can least afford it. The idea of fiscal policy doing some of that work is a great idea. If we take the GST, just to physically do it, you need state agreement. I mean, by law, this is something that would take years to change once. Another idea with the GST is to broaden the base so it captures more things. I'm not sure that that's actually a practical solution. Let's say that was a practical solution. The only thing about that then, so let's say you broaden the base or you lift the GST from 10% to 12%, everyone, the rich and poor, still have to pay the extra. So it actually disproportionately hits the poor more than it does the rich. So I'm not quite sure whether that's going to get to where Bryan wants to get to. There are things like the stage 3 tax cuts. That's an example where fiscal policy, the government tried to use fiscal policy to even out things a bit more. So originally those stage 3 tax cuts, middle income, high income earners were going to get more. The Albanese government changed it, so all taxpayers got something. Higher income earners, they ended up getting less than they were going to. Low income earners definitely got something, which they weren't. There's also stuff around, mining royalties and stuff like that, which I suppose isn't personal income, so I won't go there. Smokes, alcohol, excise, those sorts of things. I mean, they're certainly hugely. There's no doubt studies show that lower income people smoke more. And so is it fair that there's such a large excise duty on cigarettes? Don't know. There's a health issue in that one. I like what Bryan's suggesting, that tax policy should do more of the heavy lifting, because I think monetary policy is really unfair. It's just really difficult to implement.
Yeah, I was just thinking about kind of the logistics of this. And so say he's basically proposing quite a dynamic system here, isn't it? You could almost see it working as though for every kind of 1% that inflation went above the Reserve Bank's target band. So for every percent it went above the 2 to 3% target band, that suddenly it would then add 1% on to the GST. So you still have your standard base at 10%. But can you imagine then the logistics of doing, and that also then removes kind of the decision making out of it. It's kind of almost a default kind of thing. But the logistics of that and having to manually adjust this each time, and think about all the small businesses that would then need to go, okay, so now we're currently adding 12% on and all, it would be a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you could do it logistically, but I suppose if you just pretended you could, I'm still not sure that, the extra percent, the rich person still has to pay the extra percent, as does the poor person. So it remains regressive, even if you could do it. But I think you're right. You couldn't actually do it physically. Practically.
And you know what I like about this, though? It is a big picture idea. It is it is thinking outside the box, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And the idea that user pays, so people who are spending the money should actually get hit with the cost. I kind of like that as a genuine idea as well. And GST, think about the GST debate when that was introduced, it became a real user pays tax. It's like VAT in the UK. And I think that's fair enough. And so I think where Bryan's idea is not a bad one, I just think implementing might be very, very difficult.
Is it time for another tax summit, Sean, to discuss some of these kind of big picture ideas?
I mean, I've reported on tax summits before. Oh my gosh.
You still haven't recovered.
No, exactly right. Hard work.
Oh, well, anyway, what a question. Thank you very much, Bryan. You certainly got us talking about this one. And if you have a question that you would like to put to us, anything that you would like to know, then send it through on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
I'm Michael Thompson, and this is Ask Fear and Greed.